Welcome to the Nuggets Inc. podcast, presented by no one. I'm your host, Matt Schubert, joined once again by Bennett Durando. We got a whole bunch of stuff to get into. We observed the stocks of various Nuggets, up, down, hold. David Adelman is now your coach. We talk about that, the messaging out of 2 press conferences, and, of course, the NBA Finals. All that and more coming up next. And we are back at the Denver Post podcast studios. It smells awful outside. Rotten horse flesh.
I actually could smell. I was walking into the building, and if I can pick it up, that's how you know.
Yeah.
I was going to bring that up if you didn't, actually.
Not good. Not good outside. Aaron, did you get a whiff of that?
No, but I did see a giant rat yesterday jump off of a trash can outside.
That's
and when
cool.
it hit the dirt, it thudded. I had to warn Matt before he went outside.
Are you sure that wasn't a squirrel?
It was a rat.
Good times at the Denver Post. For new listeners, I have an extremely weak sense of smell. So usually when Matt is waxing poetic about the smell outside of our office, I'm
clueless.
I'm just completely unaware of what he's talking about. But I even picked it up today, which is how you know. So
not good.
No rats in the building, though. Just outside in nature.
As they should be.
Beautiful building.
Yeah. We need rats in this world. So anyway, it smells terrible outside, and it's Wednesday afternoon. Tibbs just got fired. The Nuggets have hired their head coach, and unsurprisingly, it's the interim, David Adelman. They have not hired a general manager, and we're getting Thunder Pacers in the NBA Finals. If I'd have told you Thunder Pacers in October, you'd have believed Thunder, right? But Pacers, there's no way, right?
I think we were all pretty much in agreement about the Thunder.
Yes.
As for the Pacers, I mean, if you had told me on January 1st it would be Thunder's Pacers, I would have laughed at you because the Pacers were 16-18.
Yes.
On January 1st.
Yeah, and they've been incredible ever since. It should be noted on our wins draft, I drafted both of these teams. I don't know if I get bonus points for that. I would say I should, but probably
I believe we specified before the year that it was a regular season wins draft. We could have done a playoff wins draft before the playoffs, but
then I'd be looking good.
I mean, would you have drafted both of those teams again? Who's to say?
Oh, we would have a redraft?
Yeah, of the
I don't know.
16 teams in the playoffs.
Probably not. Although I thought they were going to beat Milwaukee because Milwaukee they hadn't looked great all season.
As did I.
I would not have thought they would have beaten the Cavaliers.
I thought they could put up like a fun 6-game fight,
6 or 7
maybe
game
gets
series.
to 7 against Cleveland, and obviously Cleveland had injuries, but the Pacers kind of crushed them regardless. So
I got to tell you, kind of pulling for the Pacers in this.
of course. Who isn't? They are a blast.
Yes. So much fun. Thomas Bryant, former Nugget, coming through.
Oh, I know, in a closeout game. Fantastic for him. I dare you, like as a neutral basketball fan, to have watched the Pacers in the last 3 rounds of the playoffs and to not fall in love with them a little bit.
Right.
Right. They're super fun. The style is awesome. Halliburton kind of relishes being this heel in a extremely exciting way.
Should have been MVP of the conference finals.
I'm vindicated for having him second team All-NBA. I say that jokingly because the playoffs don't matter, and I believe in my votes based on the regular season regardless of what happens in the playoffs, but I will take the victory lap when someone who I
grant it to
was
you.
Against consensus to have hired ends up having a great playoffs. I'm not above that. Siakam, incredible.
Yeah, Siakam was fantastic. But again, conference finals MVP, you got to give it to the guy who's the driving force.
It should have been Halliburton. They were both outstanding, but
right.
I was pretty surprised when I saw it was revealed that Siakam had it by 1 vote. So 5-4 Halliburton would have fell right. 5-4 Siakam just doesn't totally sit right with me.
I listened to another podcast, I believe it was the Hoop Collective, where they all were in agreement that it was Siakam, which I was surprised by.
like they create offense through Halliburton. It's that simple, and that is like that's how they play. It's why they play fast. Like Siakam is able to exist as this wide receiver and transition weapon because of Halliburton in so many ways. There's a bit of a gravity thing with Halliburton, even in the half court, in terms of what he's able to generate, which is open shots on a consistent basis, whether it's for him or a teammate, which to me stands in opposition to Jalen Brunson's defining trait being to take guys one-on-one and make difficult shots.
Ball stopper.
He certainly was at certain points in this series, and I kind of think that
kind of his play style. Right?
I kind of thought that Cat got scapegoated a lot in terms of some of the narrative stuff coming out of that series.
Well, he certainly outplayed Miles Turner in that series. You could say that.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Also, there's the fact that when Cat was on the floor, when Brunson was off the floor, Knicks had a 100 defensive rating in the series. When Brunson was on the floor and Cat was on the floor, the Knicks had a 116 defensive rating. I'm not saying Cat is a good defender. I'm not making that argument, but the extent to which all of this force of narrative has been directed at him for being the, defensive liability, I think is a complete overstatement of the fact that Jalen Brunson gets hunted quite a bit, and I thought was probably a little more costly at that end throughout the course of the Pacers series. But whatever.
It's because he had only one block in the series.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, you read that off and it sounds awful.
I guess so. But anyway.
And also his drives to the basket are like a train wreck.
Yeah. I thought his face-up game was pretty solid for a lot of that series. Obviously, there's an inconsistency to it.
I just mean by how they look.
Yeah.
The appearance of the drive. It looks like every time he's about to break a limb. It's just such a crazy... he falls down every time. There's no sort of coordination to it. It just looks weird.
Sure. I think that his skill set is extremely valuable, and I don't know what it looks like after Game 6, but through 5 games of that series, he was averaging 25, 12 on 52% from the field, 42% from 3.
He was great.
And Brunson was just as problematic, if not more, defensively. So I digress. The Pacers are extremely fun. Halliburton, awesome. All-time shot, all-time game.
The choke move.
The choke, an incredible sequence. I've said this maybe to you, but the reason I love the end of regulation in that game and why I think it's so poetic and perfect is that I don't know that you can have a more dramatic and complete emotional roller coaster in a stretch of about 7 seconds as you do from the time that he veers backward out of his drive. You're thinking, no, what are you doing? Go to the rim. Surely this is not going to end well. The ball going up from the back of the rim, you thinking the game is over and a Knicks win.
It's up by about 8 feet above the rim.
It is out of the television screen. And you're thinking the Knicks have won the game. To the moment it drops through and you're thinking the Pacers have won the game, to the moment that the choke gets interrupted by the fact that it's a 2 and you realize that he has prematurely done this celebration that might come back to bite him, and in the end there's a chance that he will have in fact been the one to choke by doing the choke, and it all is wrapped into this stretch of seconds where you think both teams have won, and then you come to the revelation that it's going to overtime, and you're like, oh my gosh, we get 5 more minutes of this. And it's the most, it's messy, it's imperfect that it happened that way and that his foot was on the line and all this stuff, but it makes it incredible theater and one of the best basketball games probably of all time. So
I enjoyed the heck out of that game. Yeah. I enjoyed that series in general. And, I know that the ratings won't be great for OKC.
Don't care. Stop talking about it.
I was about to say, but I don't care. That was going to be the second part of that sentence. I don't.
Okay.
I do not care about ratings.
I just stop saying the word.
It's the same. It's the same thing with college football. I got to hear about ratings with every college football game. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't. We have to celebrate advertisers now.
As has been pointed out ad nauseum too, the league just agreed on a media rights deal, so it's literally not even relevant to a newsworthiness standpoint anymore. So
Okay, well, this is a Nuggets podcast, so let's get to the Nuggets. They've had 2 press conferences since the season ended. The last one, David Adelman gets hired officially, which if you watch the first presser, the tea leaves certainly seem to point to that being what was going to happen.
Well, no, actually, what happened was he had just informed people, and it got leaked to Shams as Josh Kroenke was walking into the room for his end of season presser. So like it was, writing was on the wall from the moment the season ended.
Yeah.
It basically becomes official in that situation. And then they decide a week later to trot Adelman up there and let him do his thing with Josh Kroenke next to him and all that. So
yeah. Unbelievable. It's so, couple of things. I think one of the main takeaways from both pressers is they seem to think they're just fine, that there aren't dramatic changes that need to happen to the roster, to the overall sort of organizational ethos. That seemed to be one of the biggest takeaways for me. Do you agree with that?
Pretty much. I think what has been signaled repeatedly by Josh Kroenke is this sentiment that, and I wrote as much, that Michael Malone and Calvin Booth were the problem. Not that they were a problem, but they were the problem. Whether that is a correct assessment of the situation, jury's out. We're going to have to see in the year or more to come. But
well, the irony of that is that they don't seem to think that Calvin Booth's roster is the problem.
I know it's a fascinating, dynamic and sort of subplot to it. But there have been a number of thinly veiled statements from Josh Kroenke in both of these pressers, basically indicating that they felt the slate was as clean as it needed to be once they got rid of those two and the parasitic relationship between them. And what remains is, the sort of debris of Calvin Booth's roster building plan. And as for Michael Malone, somewhat the debris of his staff with Adelman getting hired. So it's not like we are getting rid of everyone at all costs and we are trying to dump these players and at the end of the bench and refill the last 7 spots on the roster and completely reset the front office and the coaching staff, although there have been coaching staff changes made. No, like, as far as the roster goes, Kroenke has said pretty explicitly.
Our answers are internal, I think.
Yes. And there has been a consistent harping on player development and the need to do that better. Again, thinly veiled statements directed at Michael Malone, I think. Fair or unfair, whatever you want to think about them, that is what those statements are. And I think it puts a burden on David Adelman, because if the idea is the coaching was the problem and the use of the roster here was a major issue and the buy-in to the coach and all of this stuff, they're saying that David Adelman can get more out of the same roster than Malone was able to get this season. So it's an indication that the changes to that roster will be very marginal, if any at all, in fact. And I think that means there's a lot of pressure applied to Adelman for a first-year job.
So the interesting part is you say all that, but then he's basically going to have a brand new assistant coaching staff.
Yeah, to an extent. Yeah,
like Saunders is gone, who was essentially the architect of the defense, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. And I think 3 other assistants. On
3
top
others. Yeah. So
I believe you can go ahead and list them off.
Yeah. So it's Ryan Saunders, Popeye Jones, right. Stephen Graham, and Charles Klask. And
they'd been around for a while, some of those guys.
Graham had been around for the longest, since I think 2016 as a player development guy. Charles Klask has been an assistant since either 17 or 18. on Malone's staff. So those two guys.
And I think Popeye Jones has been around for a while.
It's a little less. I think it was 4 years for him, 3 for Saunders. But all 4 of them were part of the championship winning coaching staff. So, and Adelman sort of dropped breadcrumbs that there would be changes to the staff, I think, in his intro presser, in so far as being very careful and considerate to thank everyone who has been on the staff for their contributions and say that everyone did a great job under the circumstances in the last couple months, and everyone who's been a part of it over the years has been great as far as their contributions. So look, so those 4 guys, them not being retained, I don't think is just in a vacuum Adelman saying, you're fired, you're fired, you're fired. Like, these guys have a ring on their fingers. They are part of the Denver Nuggets championship team for now and forever. But I think it's pretty natural and fair for Adelman to want to have some of his own people, so to speak, on this staff, and to build it out in a way that he's going to feel comfortable with some of the voices in his ear, with the delegation of responsibilities, all that stuff. You want him to feel like he's making something that's his own on the sideline. And so I think it was probably the right approach of the Kroenke family to sort of give him carte blanche on that staff. I was surprised to a certain extent with a couple of the moves. I don't think Saunders ultimately is that surprising, just because the defense is an issue.
Yeah, but I mean, he also helped turn it around and turn it into a championship level defense.
Sure.
After arriving, I think and I would say one of the things I was thinking of while you're talking was, Adelman ended up using all sorts of different defenses in the playoffs and really mixing things up in a way that I don't think the Nuggets had done quite a bit in recent years. And then he also said
in his presser
that they were going to be more of a half-court team, or at least sort of alluded to that. And
offensively, in particular,
yeah.
I thought it was a great presser as far as like him being transparent about his philosophies with stuff.
Right, but I mean, when you think about that, them being a half court, I guess they're veteran. It makes sense, and you have maybe the best half court offensive fulcrum in Nikola Jokic. But it's he was the guy that was in charge of the offense this whole time. So like now you're. Because it's your team? Or do you think that was a directive that he was designed the offense at the behest of Michael Malone, that they hadn't been more of a half-court team? Or what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know that there's any of that sort of subtext to it necessarily. I just think that, when this team won the championship, they ranked 26th in the NBA in pace. They were bottom 5 in the league. And
although, notably against the Lakers last year in the playoffs, they ran them to death.
They can run them to death, but like some of the stuff that they would do that was running well would be like getting the ball up the floor quickly, getting into cross matches they want, and then establishing their half-court offense in the sets they wanted to run. And on that championship team, like and even maybe to a greater extent the year afterward, Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was 26th in pace the year after they won the title. Okay. But they were in that range of a slower offense both years. Like, their thing was, we are going to set up our two-man game. We are going to get the spacing that Jokic wants, and we are going to pummel you. And you might know exactly what is coming. You might know exactly what sort of off-ball action you're going to get, but it's going to force you into impossible predicaments in terms of how you want to scheme it regardless. And so we don't mind that, because this offense and the synergy and the personnel, it is all going to work, and the body movement, the ball movement, it is going to just be a precision-based, execution-based offense. And this last season, they were top 10 in the league in pace. I want to say they ranked 8th without having it right in front of me. Christian Brown's implementation of the starting lineup, big part of that. One of the best transition scorers in the NBA. Russell Westbrook coming off the bench, obviously a huge part of that. So it's going to be interesting. And what Adelman was talking about was it's great if you can run fast in the regular season and you can get easy points whenever you can. But his philosophy on this, basically, in spite of what we're watching Indiana do right now, is that the games 99% of the time are going to slow down in the playoffs, and you are going to be tested in the half court, whether you like it or not. And that he felt the Nuggets' execution in the half court in these playoffs got a little sloppy. The spacing got exploited by opponents a little bit, and the execution.
That's a roster problem, though, isn't it?
To an extent, yeah. And that's why Adelman also labeled the team's greatest need consistent shooting, I think.
Yes, he did, which I thought was interesting. Our columnist basically made the leap of, well, that means Russell Westbrook is gone, but he has a player option. He's going to have a say in that.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of, this can snowball into all kinds of stuff, but like it is kind of interesting how Russ fits into both of those ideas in terms of consistent shooting and slower paced offense. But what Adelman ultimately meant, I think the crux of his point was you have to be able to play slow when the time comes where you're forced to play slow. And so like it's great if you can run in transition throughout the season, but he did not feel like their half court spacing and cohesiveness was quite as refined this season in the playoffs when it was forced into tough situations as it had been in past years.
I mean, isn't part of that they played the Oklahoma City Thunder and Los Angeles Clippers?
I think that is part
of the
of
best
it. Yeah.
defensive teams in the half court, which I think is, not to digress, but will be interesting to see how the finals shakes out with Oklahoma City Thunder's defense going up against that offense, and whether or not Indiana can actually run them to death.
Yeah.
But to go back to the Nuggets, so if they're not going to make any big roster changes, and they're sticking with kind of the same coach and everything like that, is the idea that by this time next year, somebody like Zeke Naji is a contributor, and this is why they're better, or what is the step? I mean, in some ways,
I don't know how to answer the quote, "This is why they're better."
Okay.
Portion of the question. I mean, we'll see.
I mean, you can argue this. They played OKC to 7 games. Nobody else has played OKC to 7 games, and OKC's probably going to win the NBA title. So, in some ways, you could say that second round series was the NBA Finals. But I think that might be a bit reductive because they probably lose to the Timberwolves in the next round, right? Just a bad matchup for them.
Matchup combined with second straight round of coming out of 7 games into a team that is well rested and everyone's banged up. We find out that Russ has hand surgery in addition to everything with Porter and with Gordon. Like there would have been
That's always my favorite, by the way. I was injured.
Yeah. There have been a few of those already since teams have gotten eliminated throughout these playoffs. But there would have been a lot working against the Nuggets if they had made it through that Thunder series. So I hesitate to say that.
So a bit reductive, right? They do need. There is another step or two they need to take to get back to being the championship team that they were 2 years ago. You went through a list of possible free agents, possible additions that could improve the roster. Here's the thing. They have 2 players with player options who it seems like they could easily exercise those. Like that's not out of the question that Russell Westbrook will exercise his and Dario Saric will exercise his.
Right now, I would lean toward the probability being that they both pick them up.
So then what?
So then you're down to that's 13 roster spots filled, and then you have 2 unrestricted free agents, one of whom is Vlatko Čančar, who I tend to think they're going to bring back. At the very least for Jokic purposes. And the other of whom is DeAndre Jordan, who I actually do think is valuable. in terms of.
Well, I guess it would depend on who his replacement would be. Like if it was another center that they were using that spot, like Plumlee, you had Mason Plumlee in your free agent list.
Right. And part of what I say with the value of DeAndre Jordan is the off-court stuff too, because everyone likes him in that locker room.
Put him on the coaching staff.
I mean, so it's interesting. I talked to DeAndre on his way out of Paycom Center after Game 7. His initial sort of instinct was he doesn't want to be done playing. He would love to be back, but felt like he needed to talk with his family about it. He has a young kid. You know, it didn't sound like retirement was off the table. He has since posted on Instagram sort of a year 17 reflecting sort of post, and then said at the end, this is not a retirement post. So I think that he's ready to run it back and play another season, and that he enjoys the NBA experience, even if he's not playing that much, whether it's in Denver or somewhere else on a minimum contract, who knows? But this gets to the issue, like, of the 15 players on Denver's roster, if you're thinking there has to be change, they have to get someone new and hope that you can find a rotation player, especially a playoff rotation player somehow out there in the wind, and you just have to figure out the roster spots for it. How do you rank the guys you want off of the roster to fill that space the most? It's probably not DeAndre Jordan in number one. It's probably
it's
like
Dario Saric.
It's probably Dario Saric. That's a tough one. It's probably like
Hunter,
either Vlatko Cancar or Hunter Tyson, some of the guys who have played the least, right? Like DeAndre Jordan, you know, he might not be a playoff rotation guy, but he gave them about 50 games in the regular season, was serviceable enough, got a lot of rebounds, could play some DHO offense with the second unit occasionally, and more importantly than all that, was like a great culture guy. So I just don't think he's at the top of that list, and it's kind of tricky to sort of reconcile.
We'll get to the list later on.
You know, just what you do with that space. But as to your point about my free agent list, I kind of went into the offseason expecting one of the early, stories I would write to be exploring possible trades involving core guys. And the two press conferences in the 2 weeks following the end of the season changed that perspective entirely. And there was sort of this realization that I asked Josh Kroenke straight up if he felt an urgency to trade one of their high salary players, given the need for depth that Jokic himself has implored, right? And Kroenke he sort of danced around the idea. He didn't say anything was off the table. I'm never going to say anything is impossible, especially with the market likely to be crazy this year. But again, he sort of soft launched the idea that this is a development-based plan, still an internal solutions-based plan, which indicates that they're not eager to trade any of their starters, any of their core guys. So if that's the case, all right, new priority, not trade options. Let's look at some of the cheap free agents again, who they might be able to get. That kind of seems like the more relevant thing to examine as far as potential changes they can make.
Well, and the problem with Dario Saric and Russell Westbrook in particular, they don't have the picks to attach to those guys to get rid of their salaries. They did that last year with Reggie. Maybe 3 second-round picks was a couple too many, and now they're in real trouble with that. Now, maybe there's a way they could buy out Dario Saric or something like that, but
Dario Saric, there's an outcome that you can plausibly see, I guess, with a buyout for him, because I think he would prefer to go overseas and be able to play more minutes. And he also does not want to pass up more than $5 million. And I think the $5 million, as I've reported, are going to be the priority over the playing time in Europe. So if he picks up the contract and they're like, we really need this roster spot, and we really that's $5 million, we can figure out dead cap stuff or, delegate it into different seasons, whatever. That's like where I can see it. Is ownership going to want to pay the buyout? That's the question there.
Is there anybody who would actually say, you know what I would like is Dario Saric on my team?
He would have to be an attachment in a trade with someone of actual value.
Yeah.
Because alone, he's just a negative value contract.
One of their young guys, essentially, like Peyton Watson or something like that, would probably be the only way that you would.
Sure, or a core guy, right? So it's tough to see. It's tough. Now, look, they can use a taxpayer mid-level exception with him on the roster. It's just that they're working with less space below the second apron and fewer roster spots, obviously. So, but yeah, the Dario situation, it's a tough one. They have to like ultimately decide probably in the last days of June or the first days of July, like what the smartest path forward is and whether it is worth it to just pay him that money and get him off the books to a certain extent.
You brought up Brucey B in your free agent list.
Yeah, he was at the top of the list. He had to be at the top of the list.
He's sending love notes to Denver.
I mean, gosh. He was Celebrity Row. He was Timothée Chalamet and Kylie Jenner.
That's right.
At one of the Nuggets playoff games.
Yes. Yes, he was.
So
I get Bo Nix would be the more.
Sure, fine. Bruce Brown was Ben Stiller then. Yeah, that guy just loves Denver, and that guy loves the Nuggets, man. So, and I think it's fair to question like who he is or what he is as a player right now. Didn't get to see a whole lot of him with the injuries in this last year. He's obviously basically bounced around teams and has actually ended up playing a pretty vital impact in the formation of an NBA Finals team.
I heard him referred to as a human trade exception.
Yeah, that's kind of accurate. Like that money, the 22 or 23 million that his salary was like very much a tradable salary for a guy who on a shortish term contract for a guy who was going to be able to come in and be an elite two-way guy on a finals team. Like, that was kind of part of the potential idea the entire time with him, and it has paid off in spades for Indiana. So but he's gone to Toronto and New Orleans since then.
Right. So he's got paid.
Mm-hmm.
Are we now at the point where he's like, you know what, another discount contract. I'm ready to sign another one of those.
I think it's very possible. That is what I would say. I think there's like a pretty decent chance that something could happen there. Also, like, you know, he hasn't been as good in the last 2 years as he was with Denver. So his value is not, his baseline is not a $20+ million contract anymore.
But I could see him getting 5 pretty easy. Getting 10. Maybe.
No, yeah. Like someone could offer him the non-taxpayer mid-level and you know, that's somewhere between 12 and 14 million, I think, next season. Like, does he want to do that versus the 5.7 that Denver can offer? Like, or does he feel that sentimental about Denver? You know, we've written about his ongoing relationship to the team group chat. He had the video guys for the Nuggets make him that 2-hour highlight reel of every basket he scored as a Nugget that he will watch occasionally before games.
Kind of like his Miami video. Didn't he have a Miami video kind of like that? With Larinaga, like he told him.
Oh, Larinaga encouraged him to watch his highlights and just like sort of in general as a confidence boost sort of method when he was there. But he actually had a phone video compilation of his buckets as a Nugget made for him.
Unbelievable.
After Denver that he would watch. So he posted on his Instagram story the announcement of Adelman. So endorsement of the coach is there. There's a lot of writing on that wall to where it seems possible that there could be a reunion.
Is Russell Westbrook definitely on the team next year?
I'm not going to say definitely.
Is he traded to Utah yet again?
It's interesting, right? Like if Denver decides, you know what, we want to get slower, we want to have better spacing, the turnovers got a little erratic, the fit worked out for a year as much as it could, but maybe doesn't going forward, then they probably could reasonably explore trade options with him because he did ultimately have a plus season. He's obviously a polarizing player and a polarizing individual in the league. And, I'm sure there would be trepidation from a lot of teams. There's also maybe a team or 3 or 4 out there who could talk themselves into Russ being what they need in the same way that Denver did last offseason. So maybe there is a trade there. It would make more sense to look at that if they, went with a Bruce Brown, went with another point guard, using their sort of limited free agency resources, because then you start to get into some redundancies just on the depth chart and what's the best way to, clear that up or feel like you've upgraded. On the other hand, maybe it makes more sense to just keep him. He was productive at a minimum contract last year. I'm intrigued to see how it plays out. He could also technically opt out of his contract if he prearranges with Denver to re-sign at the minimum because he can get a higher amount of dollars at the minimum for next year. So that's a thing that could happen too, for what it's worth.
Do the Nuggets have a GM in place at this time in 2 weeks? And how long do you think they can wait to actually make that?
I think they do, yes. I'm starting to get a little surprised that there hasn't been a hire yet. Just because, the offseason can move fast. Once the finals are over, especially, it's go time. And
right.
Maybe Josh Kroenke's lack of urgency corresponds with his lack of urgency about roster changes. Maybe he feels that there isn't much to change this summer, so why rush it? I don't know that that's a very smart approach, just because you'd like to have someone who has a philosophy in place.
Right.
But, I mean, it is odd to me that it's taken this time so far.
If you were going to rank candidates, is it Ben Tenzer versus the field at this point?
Ben Tenzer and Matt Lloyd are sort of the two names that I've heard most in terms of informed speculation from people. The team has done a pretty good job keeping it close to the chest so far. Kind of amusingly, in contrast to the daily updates from Shams about the Suns coaching search.
They actually just made a hire.
So they finally made a hire, but he kept being like the last 2 candidates, the last 5 candidates, the last 9 candidates day after day.
It's a train wreck over there.
So Tenzer and Lloyd have been like the 2 names that I think have garnered the most buzz. It certainly seems like Josh Kroenke has soft pedaled an eventual Ben Tenzer announcement, with the way that he has sort of effusively praised him through the media in the last few weeks.
Is it a little weird to have the guy that was running your G League team be the next GM?
I don't know about that. I think the more fair thing to scrutinize is going internal on both hires as opposed to just one. In addition, if they hire Tenzer, it sort of justifies the order of operations, which has already been scrutinized with going coach first, GM second. It makes more sense if you end up with 2 guys who already know each other and you maybe have already evaluated that there's going to be a serviceable working relationship between the 2. But to me, the fair thing to scrutinize is not bringing in someone who's going to have a completely fresh outside view of this, no previous relationships to the players, to any of that, to the philosophy of the previous regime. Like, I think that's the argument that you can make, and where it's kind of fair to get into the Tenzer thing. I don't know about just the fact that he was the G League GM. I don't know. Look, I think there's a pretty good chance that he is at least the GM with a president of basketball operations above him, or maybe they just make him the GM. It's going to be interesting, like what that says about Kroenke's involvement in some of the decisions. Kevin Demoff is another executive who's kind of been around more and been another just pair of ears in the room at the very least, listening to the thought process on certain things. So, yeah, look, the Kroenkes have a pattern of going with these internal promotions. It would add up if it is Ben Tenzer.
Okay, so we're now going to move on to our stock report here. We're going to go through all the players on the roster. Here's how it works. It's for the season. It's where we stand now as the season has come to a close. Is the stock up? Is the stock down compared to the start of the season? Is it holding steady?
Okay.
Our man Aaron, who is, yes, wearing sunglasses inside, has decided he will be the man to read off the stats. So, first up, who we got, Aaron?
I did not decide that I was assigned. The ultimate blue chip stock, Nikola Jokic.
I'm still buying. I'm still buying.
Does the stock technically hold, or does it go up? I don't know. What's the delineation there?
He just averaged a triple-double and had maybe the greatest offensive season in the history of the NBA. So to me,
it does go up.
It does go. It's like Apple stock.
It's just funny. Yeah, I guess from like a place of his stock seemed pretty much as high as it could possibly be coming into the season already. So, and this was the first year in 5 years that he didn't win MVP or Finals MVP. So that you have that.
Probably should have won MVP. I don't know. I mean, that was an incredible season he just had, and he himself labeled it his best season.
Yeah.
So the executive is saying bye.
Don't know that we've podcasted since the vote total was revealed, but I think it was 71-29.
Not as close as I thought it was going to be.
I think it deserved to be closer. That's all.
Yeah.
Like it feels like it should have been a 60-40.
They almost beat, I would say, a team that had way more talent in a 7-game series, and one of the primary reasons was because Nikola Jokic is the best player in the league.
Yeah. Look. Let's just be spicy. Let's have some hot takes. I'm going to say stock holds because he's technically a year older, which means he's technically closer to the end of his prime. And, Alex Caruso clamped him in Game 7. So let's not forget that,
Now that is spicy.
They need to see more from him.
Aaron, you buy in still?
I'll buy a little more.
Uh-oh.
My mic went out.
Yeah, your mic went out.
Aaron's mic went out. If you didn't hear,
he's buying a little.
Yeah.
He's going to keep
stock up.
He's going to keep going. And I think that's the way you should do. All right. Is your mic back to working, Aaron?
No.
Aaron evidently did not sign up for being the technology whiz in the room. So, you want to use my mic? It's okay. You look kind of sad.
Uh-oh. Now we're switching ports. This is...
I'm going to assume that Jamal Murray is next on the list.
Yes, Jamal Murray will be next on the list.
What do you do, Matt?
Well, I want to hear stats first. Is it over for you over there, Aaron?
I mean, per game, 21.4 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, 47.4% from the field, 39.3% from 3. Don't know what we were doing with some of the, advanced analytics, but 6.2 win shares.
There's something was going on there.
Stock down on Aaron Ontiveros today.
All right, so I'm going to lead it off. I'm going to say down.
Okay.
And here's why I'm going to say down. We are now 2 straight postseasons where he has been, I would say, either good to mediocre, rarely great. And that's kind of his calling card. That's the thing that makes him valuable, is he is supposed to be a killer in the postseason. And he just hasn't been. So, down.
I'm going to say hold. I think that he was more important than you're giving him credit for in the Thunder series. I've already sort of addressed the on-off stuff with him in that matchup. I thought that he had a couple of absolutely massive performances against the best defense that he or most players in the NBA today have ever faced. Obviously, you have to hold him accountable on Game 7. Like, you just have to get more from him if you want to win that kind of game with your season on the line. Like, deserves to be criticized for it, no doubt. I still think overall, like, he kind of followed the pattern this year that he has followed his whole career, with the slow start, with the all-star-esque resurgence that wasn't enough to get him an all-star nod, the extremely high highs, some frustrating inconsistency at times. Look, the tricky thing with him is that the new contract extension takes effect next season. So he becomes a max guy at around $50 million a year starting now, not starting last season. So I guess that would maybe be the most fair argument for stock down a little bit, but I'm going to hold.
How many years are we into the career of Jamal Murray? Aaron?
Has he played 9 now?
9. If I would have told you he had been 9 seasons in the NBA and not been an All-Star or All-NBA,
yeah,
I think at some
understand.
point you're a little disappointed that hasn't happened for him yet.
I agree. I also think there's a faction of people who will point out that it's a little bit in bad faith to use the Jokic has never played with an all-star argument, because his heights are sustained all-star caliber play for long stretches of time. And he was an all-NBA player when they won the championship, even if he wasn't,
Right.
So
I would agree with that.
So, like, yes, I would be concerned if you told me that in a vacuum. I also think that it's a little bit wonky.
Let me give you one more reason why it's down. If they tried to trade him right now, I don't know how great that market would be.
I think I've said this, but interest would not be non-existent.
Yeah, I think that's right. Fred VanVleet got a huge contract in free agency a few years back. Right. He's way better than that guy. And if you want to have a tone setter for your franchise, he could be that.
I also think it's worth pointing out, in regards to Murray, Porter, whoever you want to talk about as a trade chip, that it has been sort of forecasted by quite a lot of people at this point. It is commonly believed around the league and in the media that covers the league that this is going to be an explosive and often unpredictable marketplace this offseason. And when you have that, things can be more possible. Guys that seem less tradable are not as untradeable as you might think when there's going to be quite like this robust of a market as there's going to be in general. So that's all I would say about that, both in regard to like him and Porter.
Aaron, what's next?
Aaron Gordon.
You've been sitting there for 5 minutes working on this and you still couldn't figure it out?
Well, I can't talk while I'm fixing it.
I mean, you weren't talking.
That was the test. Aaron Gordon. 14-7, 4.8, 3.2 assists, 4.3 win share.
Up. Aaron Gordon, actually, I think outside of maybe, I don't know, Halliburton, might have improved his stock more than anybody else in the playoffs.
One of the most valuable clutch players of the playoffs, no doubt.
And then he goes out and he plays with a torn, partially torn, I should say, hamstring, and gets 11 freaking rebounds. That guy's stock is up. And if they tried to trade him right now, there would be a robust market for that guy.
Absolutely. He is such a utopian crystallization of a role player, especially if his 3-point shooting this season was not an anomaly. If that's just the norm, then he really is. The size, the physicality, the defense on a variety of positions, the positional versatility from bringing the ball up as, a pseudo point guard, basically a point forward, to get them into sets, to get Jamal Murray off the ball at the start of their actions, the ability to play some small ball center as a power forward, existing from the elbows in the dunker spot, spotting up in the corners, pulling up above the break in transition. All of the stuff that he does is he's a pretty good playmaker, especially when he has to play center, creating a little bit, preferably in small doses, of course, but being able to play a little face up, a little back to the basket. Everything that he does is it is so crucial, and it's so hard to envision them parting with him, as much as we have kind of pointed out the fact that he is their number one sell high candidate. He is a fantastic player. I would say stock up as well, even though I think there's some fair, nuances to point out. The health among them, he did not play as many games last season. So the durability, especially with a guy who's, sort of archetype is this athlete, just this, as he ages, how much will the athleticism start to wear down? Some of that stuff is fair to question. I would say when he was healthy, and, I put quotes on healthy because he was playing through at least a bothersome calf, even during stretches when he was playing this season. I would say that he was having one of his lesser defensive seasons, at least as a Nugget. In the playoffs, he was pretty outstanding defensively for the most part, which just goes to show how tough the guy is, if anything. But in general, I would say his movement and just ability to contain at the point of attack on the perimeter was a little worse than it had been the last 2 years. So those are things worth having in mind. On the other hand, he went from a 29% three-point shooter to a 44% three-point shooter.
And hit some clutch
and
as well.
Was knocking down huge shots, the 3 biggest shots of their playoff run. Everyone loves him in the locker room. He is, as Peyton Watson told me, he's baffled why he's never been given consideration for NBA Teammate of the Year. So, the reasons to be happy that Aaron Gordon is on your team far outweigh the little footnotes of skepticism, I would say. So stock up, yeah.
Hey, Aaron, you got an opinion?
Stock up.
All right.
In agreement. Next up.
One.
This next player, one of the few on Basketball Reference with no nickname, whose jersey can be seen all over the south suburbs, Valor Christian Brown.
This seems like another obvious stock up, right?
15.4, 5.2 rebound, 2.6 assists, and second on the team in 8.0 win share.
Stock up. Just came off of what is obviously his best NBA season as a starter, his first season as a starter. So more opportunity. He took advantage of that opportunity. He is a one-man fast break. Great defender. And if it's a big game, guess who's showing up to play? Our guy.
Pretty big part of why they were up 11 early in that game 7. So, he plays almost every game. He's durable. He's extremely athletic. The defense, I would say, is very good already with room for improvement, which should encourage you. Nikola Jokic has called him a winner, repeatedly. He has won over Jokic in a way that Gordon sort of had previously, which isn't to say Gordon has no longer won him over. I'm just saying it's sort of that same ilk, right, of the type of teammate that Jokic really loves. The shooting, for a trait that's kind of been looked at with uncertainty, I would say, going into the season, has continued to just be solid. Like, if you can get
good enough,
if you can get him, he didn't shoot the three well in the playoffs, so that is worth pointing out. But like, if you can get those regular season 3-point shooting numbers to stay steady from a percentage standpoint at higher volume, then you really have something, because then you're just, the spacing ramifications of that are considerable. A guy who shoots it pretty well at low volume is ultimately still a guy that defenses might take a chance to ignore. We saw that. They would help off of him. They would go under screens if he was ball handling. Like, there's room for improvement there, and there's no reason to think that he can't make those improvements as well. There's just a lot to like with him.
Thought exercise, because they'd never do this. He's on a rookie contract. But let's say they did include him in a trade. Another great trade asset. I think a lot of teams would be
you could attach him to, an asset that's more questionable, and it would go a long ways, I think.
Yes, a toxic asset in him is going to get you something.
Yeah. I think so.
He's now at the point where I think established starter and could start on many teams.
Oh yeah, I think so. I saw the Ringer updated its top 100 players in the league ranking today.
Oh, did they?
A little pre-NBA Finals edition of it.
Where'd that guy go?
So Christian Brown, who I believe made the previous list at number 100, cracked it for the first time, moved up to, it was either 82 or 83. Now, can you guess the player one spot below him?
One spot below Christian Brown?
Yeah.
So 83 you're saying, or 81?
If he was either 82 or 83, and so the guy I'm talking about was either 83 or 84. Yeah,
okay.
One spot lower on the list.
You want to go first, Aaron?
Am I allowed to guess Michael Porter Jr.?
No, you're very cold. He was higher.
Michael Porter Jr., okay.
Although you could make an argument that Brown could be higher.
I definitely think you could.
Seemed like a fair guess.
I'm going to say...
It's funnier.
Oh, funny. That's a kind of a clue.
I wouldn't be asking if it wasn't like a pretty fascinating and kind of...
Rui Hachimura.
No, how is that funny?
I don't know. Just give it to us. What is it?
Joel Embiid.
Oh, my gosh. How the mighty have fallen. Oh, that's terrible.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh, my gosh.
How about that for an if I had told you in October that Ringer in June would have Christian Brown ranked a spot higher than Joel Embiid as a player in the NBA hierarchy?
Unbelievable.
If I had that type of info, I would have taken the Sixers in the Wins draft a little later.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, next up, who we got?
From one virtual Iron Man to another, a player who showed a lot of grit in the playoffs, Michael Porter Jr. Been playing a lot of games the last couple years. 18.2 points, 7.0 rebounds, 2.1 assists.
Hold. And I'm going to say why. Here's why it's a hold.
He's kind of plateaued.
He's plateaued. You know who he is now. And what he is I think, an exceptional shooter who's also maddeningly inconsistent. And the one thing
and the ball handling limitations are just like...
Right, he's never going to be a shot creator. He needs somebody to create shots for him. He never has really developed a post-up game, which is really disappointing given his size. And on the plus side, he has established, as Aaron mentioned, he shows up. He's playing, and he's playing a lot. And I think that was the thing. I know that was the thing when he was in the draft, when he fell all the way to the Nuggets. It was because nobody thought this guy was going to be able to play in the NBA long term. He has answered that question without a doubt. So, yes, there are limitations. He is not the player that people probably would have thought he was when he committed to the Mizzou, but he is a good NBA player, and if they were to try to trade him, there would be interest. I just don't know how much.
Yeah, that's a great, it's well put. First half of the season, stock was going way up, I think.
Yeah.
Second half of the season, it was definitely going down. I think it probably balances out to a hold. Every year there's kind of this push with him of like, can he just do a little bit more for himself with the ball in his hands? There were points this year where I think he was a little improved at that. He's far too inconsistent at it. Can he be that rebounder consistently as opposed to 10 rebounds one game and then 2 rebounds the next and 1 rebound the game after that, right? Like, those are questions that are always kind of floating in uncertainty with him.
It's the inconsistency part.
The defense is what it is. Obviously, it's impressive what he's able to do to be on the court, given the circumstances. We have talked about the shoulder. There was the brace issue with his foot and trying to figure out a new fit for that late in the season going into the playoffs. The size and shooting is a pretty valuable weapon next to Jokic. There's no getting around that.
Wouldn't you like it though if you could you could put him on the elbow and just shoot over a guy?
Yeah.
Every now and then?
They can try some of that. Like he'll step into that shot in the mid range.
Never back to the basket. Never they switched a small guy on him. Go and take care of business.
Yeah.
Like what the Celtics do with Porzingis sometimes. Now, granted, Porzingis is 7'3", not 6'10", but 6'10" is still pretty big.
Yeah. So Porter, will he ever be a 20-point per game guy?
He's done it before.
No, he hasn't.
For stretches, yes. For months-long stretches.
Oh, yeah, he hasn't done it in the season.
No. But at the end of the season when Jamal Murray got injured, he was consistently above 20.
Yeah. I know everyone's going to want to trade Michael Porter Jr. this summer. That is probably the number one shared opinion of fans.
But he's your best shooter. There's size. You risk the spacing potentially getting even worse if you don't really nail the trade.
And there's also the fact that there are 2 years left on the contract.
Let me give you one trade. This doesn't match up with salary, but I'm the Celtics. I got to get off of stuff. I'm going to give you Derek White.
What are you talking about?
And some other guy.
I thought you were going to say Drew Holiday.
No.
Because that's the guy that they actually would make sense to get rid of. But what are you talking about?
Derek White and toxic asset.
No, what are you okay, first of all, the reason that the Celtics need to make trades
it's because they want to keep Derek White.
Is to have a healthier cap sheet and to keep Derek White. Like, they need to get below the second apron and they need to
I just,
clear a little bit of room and have a healthier diet on their payroll.
I think that illustrates the how valuable Michael Porter Jr. is compared. You would no doubt
Porter doesn't do that for them.
You would no doubt take Derek White over him, right? If that was a
it's not even close. That was a strange name to bring up.
It kind of
Derek White is an incredible player.
Yes, he is.
He's in the Aaron Gordon, obviously a different type of player, but this role player does everything well, and just
I agree.
Anything asked of him is.
I agree.
So now, the Derek White thing. Pump the brakes. I thought you were going to say Drew Holiday, and I was like, even if that made sense for what the Celtics are actually trying to do, I'm still not sure. But sure, yes, I see your point. That Porter's a hold. Sorry, go on. I don't know.
I'm glad I threw you off.
The point I was making before you decided to throw Derek White's name into the conversation was that. a year from now, Michael Porter Jr. will be an expiring going into the following season. That is a lot easier to sell someone on as far as a trade partner.
No doubt.
And assuming they extend Christian Brown this offseason, which I fully expect them to, his higher salary will be going into effect next summer. Aaron Gordon's pay bump of about $10 million-ish will be going into effect next summer. That's when the second apron is an issue. That's when you absolutely have to make a trade if you want to avoid the second apron. And that's when Porter as an expiring might make more sense. So as far as the messaging that we've been hearing from Josh Kroenke and the team the last few weeks, I think that could be some of the rationale, is that you have a starting five you're really confident in, and you at least have one more chance to stay under that second apron before you literally have to make a move like trading Porter.
Next up.
Arguably the most volatile stock in the history of the league.
I think I know who this is.
One you'd like to day trade because you can either become incredibly rich or incredibly broke. Russell Westbrook.
I think that's a hold. I mean, he's coming in on a vet minimum deal, and I think he exceeded what you hope to get out of a vet minimum deal. Now,
I don't think you would use your taxpayer mid-level on him, though.
No.
So
and the other side of that coin is also he did kind of help sink them in the OKC series. He was not good. He was very much a negative in that series, to the point that I think you would have rather have seen any of their other backup guards than him out on the court. So
I'll give him this. He was good the first two games of that series, and then it fell apart.
And then it was terrible.
Yeah. He was like their only plus in game 2 while they were getting run out of the gym, in fact.
I just assume he broke his hand between game 2 and game 3.
His stock was high after the Clippers series.
That's true.
He looked incredible.
Yeah.
I think a hold is
fair. Then it
fair.
cratered.
I think excellent signing, ultimately, good contract. He can be a very frustrating player. There's just no way around that. And I don't know that the Nuggets or any of the other 29 teams would pay him more than the minimum.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. Unless, let me give you this one caveat. You're a team that really wants to add a veteran guy to your locker room to, bolster.
I think you go get DeAndre Jordan instead if that's what you're doing. Look, Russ.
He did that for the Washington Wizards a few years ago.
There's a specific personality trait that some teams might need that Westbrook can fit. The Nuggets needed some of that, and that was part of the rationale when they went and got him. It's not for everyone, and it's not even for everyone, even in the times when you're generally happy with him. So, like, for everything that Aaron Gordon said defending Westbrook about the Ramona Shelburne piece, one thing that he didn't say was that didn't happen. So, like, guys get frustrated with Russell Westbrook sometimes in the locker room. It does happen. Like, it's not even like a knock on Westbrook necessarily. It's just a product of how he plays and kind of just the personality that's there. It is, and it has its extremely valuable moments too. But I just think that there's a balance with him at all times.
Next up,
8.1 PPG, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, some blocks. Peyton Watson.
Up.
Really?
Yes. I thought
he was pretty disappointing down the stretch.
Here's what I think. I thought he had some good moments in that OKC series, especially defensively. And he showed glimpses of what he can become. I think he needs to have his minutes stay about the same. You can't fluctuate with him. You got to stick with him. And I think if he can build on his outside shot a little bit more, become a little bit more dangerous shooting corner threes, I think at this point he's a no doubt rotation player.
the offense just hasn't developed the way that the team would have hoped it had by now, or that I think he would have hoped it.
I think that's accurate. Yeah.
In particular, like he wants to be able to create with the ball a little bit, and he's just not there right now.
I don't know if
like you want him to be a slasher at least, right? Like
I don't know if that was ever the vision I had for him as a player. I always thought him as a 3-and-D wing.
Okay.
Like, and maybe you put him in the dunker spot, you know.
I don't think that Peyton Watson would agree with that limitation of him.
Okay.
For better or for worse, he is very confident in his abilities and thinks that he can get to a certain level offensively. And we saw it at certain moments within games this season, but if he has an expectation for himself that is at a certain level offensively, I think in here I'm going to hold him to that offensively.
So are you?
And I'm going to go slightly down.
Slightly down. Wow.
It's not me being a Peyton Watson hater or anything like that. I quite enjoy Peyton Watson.
What a hater.
I think he's a delightful person to cover, and I think he's a great defender. But I think there's a lot of room offensively where he still needs to improve, and that you kind of hoped you would have seen more of that improvement throughout the course of this season. So that's where you have to get.
3?
This was year 3. So, like, look, I can't say with as much certainty
How old is
that
he?
the Nuggets will give him his rookie extension before next season.
How old is he?
22, 23?
That's still really young.
No doubt.
Really young.
Yeah.
There will be guys drafted in this draft that are older than him.
Yeah. No, it's a good point.
Next up.
The Straw, Julian Strawther. 9 points a game, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, and as you remember, the Strawther game.
I'm going to say hold.
I'm at a hold with him, too. I think that Game 6 performance secured at least a hold for him.
Yeah, it was like maybe a slightly disappointing second season.
Yeah.
And then he had a fantastic playoff game and showed that he can...
Elimination game.
Yes,
and
and showed that he can do that in a big game. And I think it's like, okay, all right. Maybe we're going somewhere with this guy.
He's got sort of a fun on-ball style to watch. I'm intrigued to see it keep going at least. The defense is an issue.
He's not playing in rookie league, is he?
I doubt it. I don't think he will.
It's just going to be Duran Holmes and a bunch of guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Generally, third-year guys don't play summer league. As I reported, there was some disputing between Calvin Booth and Michael Malone about whether Peyton Watson would play summer league going into his third year last summer. He didn't, in case you don't remember. I don't know. Strawther puts in a ton of work. He's an extremely hardworking young player who spent a ton of his summer in Denver last year, and as I understand, is going to do the same this year. I don't know if he needs to play in summer league to show the coaches something about him or something, for them to feel like his buy-in is where it needs to be. I think he's kind of shown that on his own.
I think we've reached a level with the Nuggets young players where these are young players that would be at least enticing in a trade if you were to tack them onto something.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
Next up.
This next player, you'll remember, finally got some run, and on April 3rd against the Spurs, joined the triple-double club. Jalen Pickett,
yes.
Mr. Triple-Double himself.
Up.
I guess it kind of has to be up.
Got to be up. If
he...
you watched him in Rookie League last July, and then you fast forward to the triple-double game, you would have been like, is this the same player? Because he looked terrible in Rookie League. And I think by the end of the regular season, you thought this guy could be a serviceable backup.
Didn't last long in the playoffs, but here's the interesting question with him is a year from now, when we're sitting here and doing this, what does a stock up season look like for him?
I think he has to be part of the rotation, consistently part of the rotation.
Like Jamal Murray's backup point guard?
Like a Monty Morris kind of role.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
So
he
Jamal
has to
Murray's
be.
backup point guard.
Yes.
I think I agree. Yeah. And there's no reason to think that he shouldn't be able to do that, honestly.
Well, I mean, his 3-point shooting started to look pretty good. His decision-making has always been pretty good, I think. He doesn't turn the ball over. This is exactly what you want in a backup point guard. I think if he gets to that level, yes, he's stock up again next year.
Also worth noting with him that if we're talking about Adelman's message in his intro presser, the speed thing, the half-court execution, Jalen Pickett is a half-court execution archetype of point guard. That is like he is going to play a slow pace. Yep. And in theory, as we've pointed out on here, that is kind of not such a bad thing for Jokic's rest minutes if you can just minimize the possessions for both yourself and your opponent. So he's a good fit for that kind of role if he can develop into it.
Next up.
Everyone's favorite contract, Ezekiel Tobachukwu Naji.
I mean, it's down, but it's not like it was really all that high up to begin with to start
down.
the season.
Yeah.
Like he still isn't somebody who's in the rotation, and he is the worst contract on the cap sheet. I think that's inarguable.
Unless you like really hate Porter's game or something.
But I mean, at least Porter, you're getting like some 30-point games every now and then. What has Zeke given you? He hasn't really given you anything. And nobody wants that contract. Nobody. Nobody's raising their hand saying, trade him to us.
Yeah, you're right. There's just no way around it. Look, I mean, yeah, you just have to get consistent minutes out of him for him to be at least a hold, and he hasn't played consistent minutes. He had a 2 to 3 week stretch, February. Some really good defensive performances against some big wings. He is a good shot blocker. Like, he has that.
Can't rebound. And as you brought up, there is an alternate universe where Michael Malone plays him at the 4 from the start, and maybe he turns into something different. But we don't live in that universe. We live in this one.
Correct. Yeah. Stock down just has to be.
Next.
Next up is the player who played slightly more than Vlatko, Dario Saric.
Down. All the way down. So down that he probably is playing for like Real Madrid next year. I just don't know. They gave
whoa! Don't say Real Madrid like it's an insult. Like Real Madrid.
Is it the NBA?
I mean, Luka Doncic played for Real Madrid
as an 18-year-old.
I know. I'm just like, don't crap on the EuroLeague like that. It is a good basketball league.
He's not going to be
professional.
Oh no! Listen, if that guy stepped into a gym in Denver, he'd be the best player in the gym, no doubt. Of course, great basketball. Anybody in the NBA is a great basketball player. That's not the point. The point is he's not going to be in the NBA.
Yeah, if circumstances abiding, we'll see.
Yes.
as we've discussed.
Right.
Stock down. Frankly, it rivals Najee for the worst contract, I guess, on the roster to a certain
but
extent.
But Najee's is bigger somehow, so it's worse. Next up.
Let's go DeAndre Jordan.
I'm a hold. If they brought him back, it'd be like, okay, sure.
Yeah, hold. Yep.
I mean, he's a great locker room guy. When he goes out there, he does play hard. He doesn't have the hops he used to have. And he's still a terrible free throw shooter.
He'll catch a few lobs, though,
Yeah, but he used to be like...
I know.
An absolute freak of nature.
I know.
But, yeah, a hold. Just solid.
Lovely person.
Nice to have an Ivy League guy around.
If he's not back, I will miss DeAndre Jordan in the Nuggets locker room.
What?
Wait, what? Oh, yeah. You didn't know this about him?
No, what?
The Big Ivy.
He's taking courses at Brown.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah.
He was Texas A&M, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which is decidedly not Ivy League.
No. Neither is Arizona State.
No, it isn't. Correct.
Just looking down on Texas A&M a
I
little bit.
I don't know. You got to throw shit.
Looking down on a guy who's taken one more Brown course than you have. So
I'm not looking down on him. That was about Texas A&M, the cult that is also a university in Texas.
Alex Caruso, Texas A&M.
It's true.
I believe this is the player who qualified the least minutes of everyone on the list, Vlatko.
It's a hold. I mean,
I guess down maybe a little bit.
Yeah, maybe.
In that, like, they tried technically to see if he could exist on the floor in the playoffs.
Got playoff minutes, yeah.
So.
But we'll always have that game in Golden State.
Yeah. That was such a crazy game. Wow. Gosh, I totally forgot about that thing. Man. Wasn't enough to save Malone's job.
No.
Big win.
How about Hunter Tyson?
Down.
Yeah, he has shown nothing. He's supposed to be a shooter, and he is yet to show that he's a shooter in the NBA. I don't know why he's on your roster if he's not hitting open three-point shots.
Fair assessment, yeah. Is that it?
There's one more stock going public next year.
Durando.
Durando Holmes. Yeah, that's definitely a hold. We just don't know yet. You could be speculative.
Buy early.
And buy early. See what happens. I guess that would be just sort of how much do you believe in Calvin Booth's ability to read talent? He's been hit or miss. He's had some good ones. I'm curious to see what happens with him.
I am too.
If he turns into a player,
it's a fascinating, little hindsight situation there.
Because Calvin traded real assets to get him.
Yeah, he traded 3 seconds.
And wouldn't those be nice to have right now?
Look, we'll see. Maybe it'll be worth it a year from now. Maybe it totally won't be. It's tough to blame Calvin Booth on that one yet. If you're a full-fledged Calvin Booth ruined the future of this team kind of person, I still would urge you to hesitate on the Holmes thing, at least for now, just because, you got to give that one a chance.
He looked pretty good in that rookie league game before he got injured.
Yep. I mean, how cruel is that? I still think about that. It was his first freaking summer league game with 3 minutes left in it.
Right.
Oh my God.
And he's shown he belongs, and he's
gosh, just a absolute gut punch before the season could even start to get off of its legs.
He is, in some ways, could be seen as an acquired player for the next year's team, in the sense that he's going to be available. And again, if he does become a serviceable player, that's big for your rotation.
Yeah, so how they use him will be interesting because we're running into the same dilemma as Zeke Naji, where Calvin Booth drafted him intending him to be a 4, and I think Durando Holmes sees himself as a 4. When you're that size, you're just going to have to play at least some 5. That is part of your job in the NBA when you're that size generally, unless you're Michael Porter, I guess. But what's the balance going to be positionally with him especially when backup center remains this gaping hole and always will be, apparently. So that there will be some interesting stuff with that one. But there's no more. Look, Calvin Booth isn't in the building anymore to be mad at David Adelman if he is using him as the backup center, I guess. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, big summer league for him.
Yeah,
we'll be curious to see what he looks like in Vegas, because that's they don't have a lot of avenues to add players. He's one of them.
Yep.
Okay, well that's the whole roster. Got a finals prediction for me before we go?
Thunder sweep.
Wow, they don't even win a game. The Pacers.
I hate doing that, but I love the Pacers. I need to preface with that.
It's already been established.
I think very highly of them as a basketball team, and I think that their finals run is a great accomplishment. And I kind of just think that Oklahoma City does what they do better. And I think that I think Oklahoma City's defense is ultimately better at creating turnovers and wreaking havoc than Indiana's offense is at avoiding turning the ball over. As good as it is, as good as Halliburton is at not turning the ball over, I just think that...
Well, you've identified what will probably decide the series, right? Like, if Halliburton is able to take care of the ball and they are able to get out and run, they actually have a chance in this series.
Yeah, I just have an uneasy feeling that they're going to run into this dilemma where, going fast, actually, that's exactly what the Thunder wants to do as well. And they're really good at that too. And they're so much more disciplined at the defensive side of it and not giving up sort of the cheap stuff, the over-the-top inbound passes because they have guys running go routes as soon as Jalen Brunson's shot goes up, right? I just kind of think there's going to be a little man, well, what are you supposed to do when the thing that we're best at, sneakily plays into their hands, even if we're pretty good at it offensively generally. I really want it to be a good series. I hope it is, but I don't feel great about it.
Aaron?
Well, according to the odds, you're better off siding with Bennett at about plus 300 for a sweep because the Pacers to win it is about plus 500. I'm taking Pacers.
You're taking Pacers?
I'm going out there. My season was a dud on the wins draft.
That's true.
I got to get one back.
How many games?
I don't know, like 2 or 3. Let's say they get it done in 7.
They're winning on OKC's home floor.
On their turf.
In front of the best fans in the NBA.
I think the Pacers fans would argue they're the best fans.
OKC in 6.
Wow. Nice.
I think it's going to be a good series.
I feel like OKC in 5 will probably be the most common prediction.
I agree.
So none of us took that.
You know what?
The Edgy podcast.
I just think there's something about how Indiana went through Cleveland and New York, to a lesser extent Milwaukee. They just seem like a team that doesn't get shook very much by high-pressure situations.
Okay, counterpoint.
Throw it at me.
The Bucks defense, the Cavs defense, and the Knicks defense.
No, not great.
Are any of those, making you tremble in fear?
No.
No, they are not. And really, a core, just difference between all of these defenses and OKC is just by principle, those 3 have a defensive mark on the floor at all times. And I just don't think OKC does. Shea is the guy that you're hunting on the switch, maybe, right?
They don't have that guy. That guy doesn't exist on their team. But they're not. That's not really. Indiana isn't a matchup hunting team in the way.
Sometimes they'll do that. Halliburton likes to get spicy occasionally.
But that's not their identity. It's not like Boston, where that's they're obsessed with it.
Yeah, I mean they're trying to create a lot of mismatches off the ball though with some of their actions and just sort of the movement shooters, the guards. I don't know. I don't feel good about it. I think that OKC defense is going to be an absolute culture shock to them compared to everything that they've seen so far.
Yeah, you're probably right. OKC in 6.
But I'm rooting for the Pacers. I would love to see them pull something off. It's a very fun, exciting run.
Aaron, you got any thoughts before we go?
Not really. Back in 94, 95, I had a whole lot of Pacers gear. Big Reggie Miller fan growing up in Wyoming.
Chuck Person?
Yeah, sure. Rick Smits. All of them. Loved them.
The Davis? The Davis
Isn't
boys?
Reggie an Aaron fan? He's an Aaron Ontiveros fan, right?
Reggie and I have talked about going biking.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Huh.
And we got James Johnson in there. Shout out Cheyenne East High School.
Is he really in there, though? I mean, he's kind of just like
if a fight
coach.
goes down, I think he's going to definitely be in there. You want that on the roster.
If I may, one thing about the Thunder that makes them a little tougher to root for
There's
especially
there's a lot of things that make them tough to root for.
I like when a team has the ring chasing veteran who everyone just kind of respects and is like last year Horford. Like was anyone not happy for him winning a ring? Even people who despise the Celtics, right? Like the year before that, like you kind of have the triumvirate of those guys with DeAndre and Ish Smith and Jeff Green in Denver. I don't know about that Warriors team, obviously. But, it's just fun when there are guys like that. And OKC's oldest guy is, is it Kenrich Williams?
Might be. And who cares about Kenrich Williams?
Yeah. I mean,
there's a lot of,
Hartenstein's one of their oldest players, and he's 27 or something. So it's just kind of a bummer. You want to see, you just like to have that. You like to see when Mike Conley gets close to it, I don't know.
It's actually Alex Caruso, but he's got a ring.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Bubble ring, though.
Yeah. So we're all James Johnson guys. We can agree.
Okay. So I did not check the iTunes reviews, but I will. We're not going to read them today because I do have to get going. 5 stars. Lie with your stars. Tell the truth with your review. We do have one email. Didn't get to read it. We'll get to it at some point. I apologize, emailers. That's on me. We went long today. M. Schubert at denverpost.com. Aaron has got a single tear going right now because we're not reading these emails. So we'll console him afterwards.
I've never cried.
Mic drop.
Thank you for joining me, Bennett. The steely, unnerved Aaron Ontiveros. Always good. You did, yeah. I'm good. Yeah, get those sunglasses back on. There we go.
There are no cameras in here. I don't know what you're doing, but
we'll be back here again soon.
Looks like we have another dragon, Master Ace, spitting the burning passion. It's about to be a catastrophe. Thought I was the only survivor, but at last we meet. Like the food vegans don't eat. I know you can see the infernal blaze. We would probably burn the stage and leave it with 3rd degrees. And inside of us is an eternal blaze, blazing eternally like a furnace. But it's so hot it's burning the furnace's frame. Your family and furniture isn't safe. Better evacuate, cause the skill we can calibrate reduces the chances of your survival if you ever try to retaliate. So dance to this recital so you can slowly gravitate towards us. Who needs a chorus when you're hotter than Earth's core is? No strings attached with no puppets, yo, we're cordless. I fly even when I'm hurt, yo, that's soaring. Your skill isn't apparent, it's an orphan. We proceed to spit the verse that takes your spirit and lifts it high into the earth's atmospheres. Don't come at my sphere of influence, you squares. I take a spear and put it through you, I raise the stakes. Ha, medium rare, you're the least of the media's fears. Why he's the reason the media's scared. Please be prepared to be impaired. Go see repairs, defeating people in pairs. Jordans, I thought I needed pairs to be compared to the people in pairs.
This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
Gather round hip-hoppers as if you're still living. Still got love for the game, I'm still giving and still driven. Like Diddy in the Maybach. I've been repping for the city since way back. All y'all rappers better stay back, cause you still can't find me, I'm a needle in a haystack. A rare breed sitting high up in the chariot. What y'all do is getting high up in the Marriott. Well, consider this your wake-up call. If you're married to the game, this the breakup call. And you ain't wearing a crown if you're not tearing it down. You clowns get found right there in the ground. 6 feet, dirt nap, that's because your shit's weak. I'm a giant, you a pipsqueak. Welcome to my kingdom, yup, the throne has an occupant. Read my name at the bottom of the document. Check the scroll, giving good times like Esther Roll. Peace to Keith E, God bless the soul. Trying to get more checks to hold. On some slick Rick, Mr. T shit, big chest of gold. And the flow still extra cold, like the North Pole. Cocaine snow, another lost soul. Bow down, it's the Grand Royal, yup. 20 plus years in the game, and still the fans loyal.